I am back to the realm of the Elderlings. I hadn't actually decided whether I was going to vlog this series or not, but when I picked it up and started reading it, I decided that I do want to talk about things as I read them while they're fresh in my mind. I had kind of forgotten what Robin Hobb's writing style was like. It's been at least a couple of years since I read the Farseer trilogy. I read the Live Ship Traders trilogy last year, a little over a year ago during the summer, I think. And having read so many other things in between that and this, it feels really like cozy and comfortable coming back to her writing. And I know it's not going to stay that way. And although I've only read 4 chapters, I have already cried. And I know that being Robin Hobb, bad things will happen, but they haven't happened yet. So it's just been like a feel good, getting back into this world, reintroducing myself to these characters. So at the end of the Farseer trilogy, you have Fitz himself, who's been writing about his journeys, and he makes it seem like he has been in his hut alone for so long. He's writing like he's this old, wizened man at the end of his life. And so when I picked this up, and on the first page he says he is 35, that is younger than me. So no, Fitz, you are not old yet. I do understand that he has been through a lot. He has old injuries. He is not as physically healthy as he would have been if he had not almost died or actually died, had an arrow shot into his back. I don't even remember everything that happened to him. So in the first chapter, his old master Chade comes to visit him. His old friend Starling has taken his boy. I don't know that he really defines what Hap is to him. Hap is like not officially adopted. Starling had brought Hap to Fitz at the end just for Fitz to take care of him because Hap needed somebody. And so Starling has taken Hap to Buckkeep for the spring festival. So Fitz is home alone. He's been living for 15 years as Tom Badgerlock. He has had a pretty quiet life these past 15 years, and along comes Chade for a visit. Checking in on him, brings in some presents, and bringing up lots of old memories and feelings. And then Chade invites Fitz to come back to Buckkeep to train Nettle and Prince Dutiful, Fitz's biological children, in the skill magic. Chade doesn't know for sure if Nettle and Dutiful will have skill magic, but because they're biologically descended from Farseers, it's pretty likely, and Fitz is kind of the only one to do it, but Fitz refuses. As tempting as it is for him to have his own children know him, not to know him as their father, but just to know him as a person, he doesn't want to pass on the addiction that comes with skill use because he knows it will happen. He has suffered enough from it and still suffers. That's not an inheritance that he wants his children to have. He doesn't want to pass on the addiction and the pain and the struggle. So he tells Chade no. He refuses to acquiesce to his request. After Chade leaves, Starling and Hap return. And you know what? I really do not like Starling. She is showing her true colors, and they are not very attractive. Back when she knew Fitz before, she was not married, and as far as Fitz knows, she's still not. So why not invite her in and into his bed when she comes to visit? And you know, I was not terribly fond of her in the last book, Assassin's Quest. She always seemed a little self-centered, like she was following Fitz for her own benefit to write songs about him. It seemed like her relationship was always pretty self-centered, and at the beginning of this book, she has shown that it was always very self-centered. She has shown that she is manipulative. She twists everything around to make it seem like she is right, she's not at fault, trying to get people to do what she wants. She is a cheater, and she tries to excuse it because she can't have children. No children, no cheating. Doesn't seem to matter to her how Fitz feels about that. And then she was really mean to Hap. Later, when Hap is saying the kind of things that Starling had said to him, she was very cruel. The way she brought up his probable father and how his birth came to be and what kind of man his father was, and you're just like him. I won't say the words she used. The only good thing about this visit from Starling is that she brings Fitz news of how the world is shifting. Not really shifting, but like going back to old feelings for people who use the wit magic, which she knows Fitz has. That's why she assumed that Chade had visited. I don't know how much she's actually worried about Fitz, but she brings the news, wants him to know what's going on out in the world. Things are getting kind of bad for wit magic users again. And then the next chapter is just so sweet. Between Fitz, who is known as Tom, and Hap. Hap does not know Fitz's past. He doesn't know who Fitz is. I couldn't tell whether he knows that Fitz has the wit magic or if he just thinks that Fitz and Night Eyes are a normal human and dog pair. But Hap loves Fitz. Fitz is the one who took him in, who raised him. He owes everything to him. And Fitz is realizing that he needs to do better. He needs to remember that Hap is growing up and will need a life. And he has not thought of this ahead of time and has saved nothing for Hap's apprenticeship. And now they're trying to scramble to get enough money to get Hap the apprenticeship he actually wants and not the one that they can afford. And so Fitz offers to go hire himself out to make money for Hap. And Hap is like, well, why don't I do that? And then Fitz has to look at Hap like, what happened to the child you were? Oh, I guess Fitz was thinking of himself as I'm older and bigger and stronger and more able to work for money. But now he's looking at Hap and seeing how much he's grown, and Hap is at that stage of where being younger makes him stronger. In his teenage years, he's got the strength, he's got the vitality, but Fitz still would have hired out for Hap because it's something he would have done for him as a gift. And in this time of Hap wanting to leave, Fitz is realizing how deep his emotions go for Hap. How much he feels like maybe they have in common because they were both bastards, a word that Fitz hates, understandably. And Fitz never got to raise his own kids. He left before he even knew that Molly was pregnant with Nettle. Or no, Molly left? I don't remember. He never knew that Molly was pregnant until they were already apart. The whole conceiving of Prince Dutiful, super awkward, really weird situation there. But either way, both of those children, Fitz has not even been close to at all. And Hap, he never tried to raise as his child. He didn't feel like a parent. He never gave that much thought to how he was teaching Hap to be a man, what lessons of manhood he was teaching. And so now looking at Hap, he's feeling really emotional, I am so proud of this kid. I didn't even mean to raise such a good kid, and here you are being just this awesome kid, going out into the world, taking on adulthood with this positive attitude, this willingness to work, do what it takes, his ethical dilemma with Starling, just all these things that Fitz doesn't even realize he's passed along, and it's really hard to watch Hap leave. The day that Hap leaves, Fitz is feeling so restless. He can't make himself do anything. And then he dives headlong into all the chores, just hard physical labor, because his brain can't focus on anything that requires mental effort. And then it talks about how he feels like he's waiting for something or watching for something and he doesn't even know what. Night Eyes says someone's coming and he gets so excited, but it's not Hap. Oh man, that whole section is the part that made me cry. As a parent, my kids are still young, and I am not looking forward to the time in my life when they're entering adulthood. Just let's let this time feel like it passes very slowly, and I'll be fine with that. Oh man. And then Jenna the Hedge Witch. Jenna the Hedge Witch. Jenna the Hedge Witch. That's a tongue twister. She comes to stay the night. She's this nice little presence in the house for the night. She reads Fitz's palms. She's super confused. One hand shows that he should have died at an early age. Spoilers, he did, but he's still here. Weird. Then she tells his fortune. His one true love is still going to weave in and out of his life. It's not over yet. Sells him a couple of charms, discovering that he has wit magic, which she just kind of ignores. No big deal. She says something about, you are what you are, you can't help it. But I feel like something like that isn't just going to be left. I feel like that is going to come up later. The fact that this person now knows that he has wit magic and the tensions around wit magic are running so high, that's not going to end up being nothing, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I am about to start chapter 5, which is called The Tawny Man. So we've gone 4 chapters of the first book of the Tawny Man trilogy, Fool's Errand, and the Fool has not even shown up yet. Looks to be like that will be the chapter I'm on next. Also, before I read this chapter and before I go on, the first trilogy I read by Robin Hobb was the Live Ship Traders trilogy. And this is a spoiler, so if you're watching this, hopefully you've read those 2 trilogies already. I just accepted Amber as Amber. I had no idea what her past may have been, who she might have been. That's just the character I was introduced to, and so I accepted it. And this is like 10 years after reading the Live Ship Traders for the first time. I was reading the Farseer trilogy. Nothing in my mind could have made me connect the Fool to Amber. I didn't even remember the character Amber when I read the Farseer trilogy. So last year when I was reading through the Live Ship Traders trilogy, I started to get a little suspicious. Like, these 2 characters seem a lot alike. Maybe they're related. Maybe they're from the same geographical area. Maybe they're siblings. And that little spark of, could this be the same character? Just slowly grew. And I was like, no. I'm so wrong. And then by the end, when Amber is carving the live ship's face to look obviously like Fitz, there's no question there. I was like, okay, I guess I'm right. It's never specifically said. So before I get to the first chapter of The Fool in this one, I am hoping that the Fool's time as Amber is referenced and brought up, and maybe he'll talk about his adventures with the live ships or something. I don't know. I hope there's more there. I hope that that's delved into a little deeper. But I have already talked for a long time and there's still a long ways to go. The last place I left off, I was about to start chapter 5 called The Tawny Man. I think that made it pretty obvious who was going to show up in that chapter. And since then, I have read 4 more chapters. So I'm about to start chapter 9. And this book is so slow to start. I'm currently on page 175, and they have not left Fitz's cottage. He's had a lot of visitors. After Chade was Starling, and then Jinnah, and now finally the Fool has come back to him. But this is very easily one of those instances of nothing is happening except character building. That's basically it. So when the Fool comes, they kind of reconnect. They have some very sweet moments like, we complete each other. Fitz is a little disappointed to find out that the Fool is there to use him as the catalyst again, not just because of personal feelings of friendship, which he would have preferred, but he is at least happy that someone from his old life who cares about him has come to see him. There's been a lot of slow revelation of what happened between the end of the Farseer trilogy and this one. There's a 15-year span of time, and so there's a lot of Fitz recounting some of those events to the Fool in between some of their just bonding and conversations. Fitz is sad that Hap isn't there, not just because he misses Hap, but because he would like to show Hap off to the Fool, and I think that's so cute. Behold this young man I have helped raise. And after having read the Live Ship Traders trilogy and seeing the character of Amber carve Fitz's likeness into a live ship, and some of the things she said about that face she was carving, and how the Fool behaves now that he's back with Fitz again, like, you may call me the thing my mother called me, which is beloved. At the end of the Farseer trilogy, the Fool had joked that Starling was accusing him of being a woman and being in love with Fitz. Obviously so ridiculous. But now that we're seeing a little more, it seems like that might be a little more accurate. And I don't know if Fitz is aware of the Fool's feelings for him and is just trying to ignore it and trying to force the Fool into the friend zone, or if he's just completely oblivious. If Fitz is so straight he can't even comprehend someone not being a woman being in love with him. I don't know. I'm leaning towards him being oblivious, because the Fool already seems like his own unique person, the way that the Fool shows affection just seems like, oh, well, that's how the Fool is, you know? So to me, reading this, it seems pretty obvious that the Fool's feelings are deeper than Fitz realizes they are, and Fitz just has no idea. I had seen on the internet, Reddit specifically, that there was a lot of like Fitz and Fool romantic fanfiction. And after just reading the Farseer trilogy, I was like, why? That makes no sense. That seems like a really weird pair to write fanfiction about. Now a little bit into this, I'm like, oh, that's why. But this is only the first of both the Fool and Fitz being full-grown adults. There's 2 more after this, and then another trilogy, so I have no idea where all that's going to go. I sense some future awkwardness, probably some future heartbreak for one or both. I also have to wonder, only being 8 chapters in, about Jinna's prediction. So she was reading his palms and telling him that his true love is still going to weave in and out of his life. And automatically I was assuming, well, that's going to be Molly, right? Somehow Molly and him interact again. They come together at some point. Maybe Burek gets old and dies and Fitz finally comes in to fill that position. I don't know. Don't tell me. But now I have to wonder if Jinna prophesied that for him, not about Molly, but about the Fool. The Fool obviously loves Fitz. Whether romantically or platonically, someone who honestly loves him keeps coming in and out of his life. So who Jinna referred to, I don't know. But I don't think it was necessarily Molly. And it was interesting reading the chapter where Fitz is recounting his time with the Old Blood. When I was reading the Farseer trilogy, I was really hoping that there would be chapters spent there. I love sequences where magic users go to train. Doesn't sound like it was a very positive or happy experience, such as life for our friend Fitz. But it does seem like it helped Fitz and Night Eyes to understand their relationship with each other better. And they just had that weird moment of Fitz like forcefully going into Night Eyes' body to heal him, and the Fool having to use his like 0 knowledge of the skill to pull Fitz back and save him. Fitz didn't like that. And then Night Eyes was like, well, what do you think you did to me? Isn't that the same? And then they've had a good deep talk and they've gone to bed for the night. So the next chapter is called Dead Man's Regrets. Sounds like a very appropriately named chapter for this book and this set of characters. Still have about 500-ish pages to go, so onward. All right, I am now up to chapter 15, which is pretty much exactly halfway through. And I really need to film this next clip while things are fresh in my mind because I just got The Fury of the Gods today. And I don't know whether I'm going to try to read it at the same time as this one or just take a break from this for a little bit. But there's been a lot happening here relationship-wise that I want to talk about. I don't remember exactly where I left off, but I know that the Fool had made it to Fitz in his home. And it felt like it took a long time for things to go anywhere. Fitz has finally left home and gone back to Buckkeep. It took a lot to get him there. And in this portion of the vlog, I want to talk more about the relationship between Fitz and Hap and Chade. So Fitz, being what he is, being an illegitimate son, has had a lot of issues with bonding with people and trusting people. He has really definitely bonded with Hap, this other illegitimate son that has come into his life and now he is treating as his own son. He's really latched onto this boy. At this point, he is feeling like a failure. He's realizing suddenly that he never taught Hap like life skills, survival skills outside of their tiny cottage. Like, Hap would know how to survive in the wilderness if all he had to do was forage for his own food or hunt for his own food, but he's never taught Hap how to fight. Anything about living in a city. He has failed to save up money for Hap's apprenticeship fee, and he's really beating himself up about that. And I feel, well, okay, Fitz had been feeling for a while that a time of change was coming. He feels the change on the wind. He knows something is going on. He had talked to Night Eyes about maybe just wandering for a while, and I found it interesting that even though Chade sent that one soldier to come get Fitz and take him back to help with Prince Dutiful, it was not Chade's summons that sent Fitz into Buckkeep. Fitz was already ready to go. Not for love of Chade or love of Dutiful or for his country of Buck, whatever. His love for Hap is what sent him back. He knew that he was going to have to work hard to get Hap what Hap wants. He knows that he has people in Buckkeep that will help him, that he can borrow as much money as he needs from, but he feels that that is going to come at a cost. He knows that Chade and Kettricken will want to use him, and whatever he takes for Hap, he's going to have to pay for. And then later, I've gotten far enough that that feeling of his that he's going to have to pay for what he gets for Hap has been proven false. And in fact, Chade is very hurt that Fitz even thought that. Like, you came here and you're doing this for us because you thought I would require it. This is payment for Hap. You could have just asked me and I would have given freely. And Chade's feelings are hurt, but he's trying not to blame himself. He's trying not to blame Fitz. He knows that Fitz is a product of his upbringing. And I think here, Chade takes in Fitz and is feeling about Fitz the way that Fitz now feels about Hap. But instead of living a quiet life in a cottage, Chade was training Fitz to be an assassin and really pushing Fitz into doing things that you might not normally teach a young boy to do. And now Chade is feeling guilt, like this is the boy he loved and he has helped to turn Fitz into what he is now. And even now, even though he loves Fitz, he needs Fitz to use the skill to try to find Prince Dutiful, and it hurts and it's hard, and he can see Fitz suffering, and Fitz is just begging, please can I have the elf bark? And Chade tells him no. He is still asking Fitz to suffer for the crown and country. Even through his love for Fitz, Chade is seeing the bigger picture. Okay, and something that's really bugging me and has bugged me the whole series is, why is every woman close to Fitz's age attracted to him? I don't get it. I feel like I would get it more if the author of this story was a male. And so I'm almost like a little mad at Robin Hobb for writing it that way. Starling, Jenna the Hedge Witch seems kind of into him. And now he's taken off with the Fool to go find Dutiful. And Laurel seems like she's kind of into him. Are you married? Neither am I. Why do they all like him? Fitz has also been struggling a lot with his pride, coming back in as a servant, wearing a servant's blue. It's not like his station was super high before, but he did have certain privileges. He's realizing that he always had the best of everything, just like a prince. He didn't get to live the prince life, but he had warm and good food, nice clothes. Every physical need was taken care of before, and he's just starting to realize that for the position he had in life, he actually didn't have it too bad. At this point, at the point that I am, the Fool, or Lord Golden, who seems to be having far too much fun playing his part, Fitz and Laurel have left Buckkeep to go find Dutiful, who is supposedly in Gaelton. So Fitz has not met Prince Dutiful yet. I'm kind of looking forward to that meeting. I think there will be a lot of emotions going on when that meeting finally happens. And I think it will be more than Fitz expects. So if Fitz knew that he was going to find Nettle, the child he had with Molly, I think he would be expecting big emotions. He would be expecting this poignant moment. But Dutiful isn't supposed to be his son. Fitz didn't have any kind of romantic connection to Kettricken. This is supposed to be Verity's child. Although Fitz knows the truth, it's his biological son. He doesn't feel that connection except for like the shared dreams and stuff. So I don't know what Fitz is expecting, but I'll be interested to see how Hobb writes that meeting up between them. I've also been having this thought. And if you're watching this and you have read further into the series than me, don't tell me. But I've been thinking a lot about the wit magic and how it works. And I've been thinking about the other area in this world where there are real life dragons. I don't recall anywhere in the Live Ship Traders trilogy anyone having the wit magic, so I don't know if that's regional. but I would be really interested to see if anything comes up with wit magic users bonding with dragons. I would love to see something like that. As the person who loves dragon books, dragon rider books, can we please have some kind of dragon and rider bonding moment? It doesn't have to be a rider, just a relationship between a dragon and a human. If not, it's okay. There's plenty of other stories like that to be had. Oh, and when those three, Fitz, the Fool, and Laurel, are riding off out of Buckkeep, Fitz has left Night Eyes. Night Eyes told him to wait. He doesn't want to be left behind. He doesn't want to take care of Hap because he secretly knows that Fitz actually wants Hap to watch over Night Eyes because Night Eyes is getting old and might not be able to keep up and might be in pain later. That's really rubbing Night Eyes the wrong way. So I'm kind of hoping to see that Night Eyes catches up. Maybe teaches Fitz a lesson about leaving him behind. Because if he is old enough to be at the end of his life, he should be with Fitz, right? I would think. I have this horrible feeling that Night Eyes is going to die in this first one. Again, if you've read farther than me, don't tell me. So the second half might take me a little longer to finish. Might put it down for a bit. Might try to read 2 books at once. We'll see. But plenty more reading to be had. I am back with the Fitz, and the Fool. I took about 3 weeks off to read The Fury of the Gods, and now I am back. And I had the same feeling coming back to this after 3 weeks that I did coming back to Robin Hobb after a longer break, which was, I like this writing style. It's very slow, but not slow like boring or like she's taking too long to describe things or, oh my gosh, is this ever gonna go anywhere? It's the right kind of slow. She is taking her time, but in a way that just feels like nothing is being rushed. I feel like the pacing, the not just story beats, but like action beats within a scene are just very well paced. Like when someone walks into a room, the amount of time it takes for them to notice things, the amount of time it takes to say what they need to say in a scene just feels right. I don't remember exactly where I left off. I was pretty much halfway before, and I'm on page 470 out of 662. They had made it to the Brazingas, did their whole thing there, which, oh boy. I don't know how much what really happened there matters to me that much. Laurel is very suspicious of these two, as she should be. They are playing parts, and she's in very close quarters with them. I do feel like Hobb has a really good grasp on what it feels like to have a migraine, to have been through trauma, whether she's experienced those things herself or not. She's obviously done enough research to be able to describe how it feels. As much trouble as Fitz, Tom Badgerlock, is having being a servant or pretending to have a different relationship with his friend the Fool than he normally has. Apparently the Fool / Lord Golden is having a really hard time having Fitz in that position. He has admitted to Fitz that it has been really hard. He thought it might be fun to make Fitz pretend to be his servant, and it has not been what he expected. Poor Night Eyes. Night Eyes is old and tired, and finally Fitz understands why Night Eyes had been kind of pulling away for a while. The wolf lives in the moment. The wolf is not worried about the future. He's not looking ahead to a time when maybe he's not there. He's not worrying about Fitz, and he wants Fitz to live in that same headspace. Just live in the moment. Take each day as it comes. Don't treat me like I'm already dead and gone, which is kind of what Fitz had been doing in his mind. Like, when you know you're going to lose someone, whether they're old or sick or whatever, and you are pre-mourning, you start to enter that state of mourning earlier than you need to. And that's what Fitz was starting to do with Night Eyes, and Night Eyes called him on it. I'm not dead yet, I am still here. Fitz does still try to heal him again. Not really heal him, but lend him vitality through the skill like he did with Prince Verity. Night Eyes gets very angry about that again. So angry that he says, if you do that again, I will leave you forever. I will not have to die for you to lose me. Fitz is really confused I feel like I'm kind of confused too. I feel like they should be close enough that that is an okay thing to do between them, but Night Eyes is like, no, not okay. Some sort of violation that Fitz doesn't get. So they thought they had the prince. Prince gets away. Not really gets away. Some people take him away. So they need to find a way to extricate themselves from this social situation. And the fool is saying, I'm going to have to do something I don't like. And oh boy, I do not admire him for this. He did something rather despicable. The way he treated Sidel, like overtly seducing her, he knew what he was doing was wrong and dirty, and it made him feel nasty, but he still did it. And then he went even farther and came on to Civil, which was finally the last straw. And so they get out, and Laurel is becoming even more suspicious. She tells this story about, like, not being valued because she doesn't have the wit. And so Fitz can tell she's not being completely truthful. He doesn't know what the truth is. But when he, like, jokingly says, maybe I'm witted, she just brushes it off. That's not possible, because you're not anything like the other witted people I know. And then they capture the archer in the tree. I don't remember his name. I'm not sure if remembering his name is even important. And this tests Fitz. This is the point where he is like, here is why you brought me. Not just because he has a skill bond to Prince Dutiful. Sure, that's part of it. That's helpful. It's not very consistent or reliable, but why else would you take a trained assassin on this kind of journey with you? Someone who has been trained by Chade. And so this is a big, like, inward test of Fitz. Like, how far will he go? How much will he do? How much of himself will he give? And he discovers that he is still living in his trauma. He is still the victim. That doesn't go away. There's no healing for that. No complete healing, anyway. He goes so far that he scares the fool, to the point that the fool doesn't even know if he really knows Fitz as well as he thought he did. He scares Laurel to where she runs away with their captive, and he really scares Night Eyes. The next day, he tells Night Eyes, you didn't have to let Laurel escape. You knew I wasn't going to actually kill him. And Night Eyes is like, I don't know that you or I for sure knew that. So Night Eyes is feeling like he's protecting Fitz by not letting him go too far. Which, yes, and they made a deal. No more killing if it's not for food. So I've left off on the part where Fitz and the fool, Tom Badgerluck and Lord Golden, have left the cave where they stayed with Laurel and their captive who got away, and now they are out searching for Dutiful. Which the chapter I'm on is called Dutiful. I'm in the middle of a chapter, so I'm hoping they find him by then, or at least find out where he is. There has not been that much emotional, hard things going on yet. That one thing in the cave, so I know there's more coming. Alright, I do not remember how far in I was when I last filmed, but I have now finished it. And oh boy, this whole last part is Fitz and Dutiful finally being together. There are so many emotions there. It is not a happy meeting. Fitz doesn't get to just tell Dutiful who he is. He has this part to play. They do not like each other. It is really rough. Fitz is thinking that he never got as angry at Hap as he is getting at Dutiful right now. For one, as a parent, it can be really frustrating dealing with the negative things that your child gets from you. Like, why do you act that way? Oh, because I act that way. And you don't even necessarily realize that that's what's causing tension. But also, to be fair, Fitz and Hap had a long time together relationship building before Hap ever hit his teen years. And Dutiful and Fitz have never even met before. They have nothing, no history, no past, none of it. The fool is feeling really sad for Fitz that he has to meet Dutiful this way. If I remember correctly, the fool is the only one who knows that Fitz is biologically Dutiful's father. As far as anyone else is concerned, Dutiful is Verity's son, which would make Dutiful and Fitz cousins. So how much nicer if they could have met for the first time as cousins, and that's only if someone even knows that Tom Badgerlock is Fitz. They wouldn't know that biological connection. The Fool does, and he's feeling really sad for Fitz and that they're meeting like this. And it's said that it broke the Fool's heart that Dutiful looks so much like Fitz did at that age. The Fool knew Fitz at that age, and the Fool looking at Dutiful and seeing like young Fitz again is feeling so guilty at using Fitz as his catalyst and having started using Fitz as his catalyst at that young age, and that he would protect Dutiful if he could from what happened to Fitz because of him. I felt like there was a long time in which Fitz like didn't even think about Hap. Like the whole reason that he goes on this journey was not for Dutiful, but for Hap. He felt like that to get Chade to take care of Hap, he would have to pay for it with his service. And then he goes off and he's doing all this and not even thinking about Hap anymore. And there's one point where he thinks about him and I was like, it's about time. Weren't you even worried about him while you're away from him? It was really interesting when they transported through the stone and they're on this island and it's like taking time describing where they are. It took me a long time to realize, they're on Other's Island, which if you read the Farseer trilogy and skipped the Live Ship Traders trilogy, you don't know what Other's Island is. Even having read the Live Ship Traders trilogy, I'm not sure I really understand what Other's Island is, but I have seen it at least in that story. And I find it really interesting that Fitz found these feathers on Other's Island, stole them, with the Fool in mind. He keeps saying he wants to show them to the Fool when they're alone. And then the book ends and he never showed the feathers. And I am wondering, do they go to the Rooster Crown? I don't know. That is my guess. The Rooster Crown has been this mysterious object and I have no idea what it means. It has to come in later. Otherwise, what a ginormous red herring this is. What's up with the Rooster Crown? It also ended without Fitz and Hap reuniting, which I feel like is fine. There's not going to be that big time jump between this book and the next one. It feels like it's probably going to go right into it. I felt like for me, something that I really enjoyed about this book, besides just Robin Hobb's writing style and the fact that she's a good storyteller, is that in this one, Fitz is a grown adult. He's in his 30s and he is spending time with his son. His son doesn't know that he's his son. There's not a parent-child relationship going on, but Fitz knows, and so he's having all the feelings that go along with that. And so as a grown adult in my 30s with children, I feel like I can connect to Fitz way more in this book than I could in the first 3 when he was a young boy and a young man, which is not super relatable to me, but this one has more emotions coming from the main character that I can understand. And part of that is including seeing things about yourself in your own child. Fitz had never gotten to know Dutiful before. They've never spent time together, but he can already see some of himself in this child. I don't think I actually knew how old Dutiful was. For some reason, I was thinking he was an older teen, more like Hap's age, which I knew what the time jump was, so I should have known he was about 14. I kept imagining him a little older, but then he would act more immature. Anyway, Dutiful is 14. And then, of course, there is heartbreak. So much of it. I knew. I mean, I guessed, but I felt like I knew that Night Eyes would die in this one. I felt like everything was leading up to it. The way that Fitz was like anticipating Night Eye's death and pre-mourning him and thinking about like the Fool had chosen Fitz's horse, and if Fitz had chosen, he might have looked at a horse as a possible future companion for himself instead of picking it based on the I'm going to be riding this horse. Like, Fitz knew it was going to happen, and so I felt like I knew it was going to happen. I also feel like Night Eyes knew, but Night Eyes, being a wolf, just lived in every moment. He lived only for that day, for the next meal. He wasn't anticipating the future or worrying about the future like a human would, and he was trying to get Fitz to just live in that day with him. Like, I'm not dead. appreciate what we have right now. And if Night Eyes had stayed home, things would have gone very differently. He might still be alive, but Night Eyes chose to go on the journey with Fitz. He didn't want to get left behind. If he had known he was going to his death, he still would have gone. He wanted to be with his life partner, going through that stuff together. Their place was together, and that's what he wanted. And then, I hate it. I hate that Fitz and Dutiful now have this thing in common where they both lost their companion. It's not quite the same for them. They both have the weird mix of skill and wit, and they both let themselves get too attached to their companion at first. Fitz and Night Eyes were together for far longer, and Dutiful never got to have the connection to his cat, that he didn't even know his name. That little cat loved Dutiful, just like any animal companion would love their human partner. But he wasn't allowed to have the connection to Dutiful that any other animal could have. He wasn't allowed. Dutiful didn't get to know what a bond with an animal would really feel like because of, what's her name? I don't even know. I don't even care. The human whose spirit was inside of the cat. She was like a wedge between them, not even letting them have the connection they should have been able to have. I feel like there was a lot more. Oh man, and then is it the fool who tells him, I see no future, where Dutiful dies, that Nettle can also survive? Again, Fitz has never met his biological daughter, and so he's trying really hard to keep Dutiful alive so that Nettle can live. Farseer heir or not, it was the only value that I could see in him just then. Oh my gosh, I am disappointed in my son. He examines the thought, reassures himself that Dutiful is not his son. He never accepted any responsibility for his rearing, so he has no right to be disappointed or pleased by him. What emotions to be having to deal with. Oh man. I randomly opened up to that page, but that is a really good little just snippet of what Fitz is going through here. And he's going through it mostly alone. Like, the fool knows that Fitz is Dutiful's father, but nobody else knows or can understand. Even Night Eyes, who can be present with Fitz's thoughts, even he doesn't really understand. Also, Fitz and Dutiful dealing with similar things of like loneliness. Oh, and then Chade and Fitz's new relationship. I kind of loved that. Chade has always been above. The mentor, the teacher. Fitz always has to report to Chade, and now that's changing a little bit. Chade's like, what, you expect me to report to you? But I will only do that if you accept this new position of being the prince's teacher. And then Chade asks Fitz something about what Fitz and Dutiful talked about, and Fitz has to be like, I'm sorry, if I take this and my loyalty is to the Farseer, not to you, I can't report to you, to Chade, what we've talked about. And Fitz feels like he's driving in the wedge between himself and Chade, but that's actually what Chade wanted to hear, and now he feels like he did the right thing by bringing Fitz in. Chade understands that Fitz's loyalty has to be to the prince, not to himself, to Chade. I kind of like Jenna, the hedge witch. I kind of hope there's a little something something between Fitz and her. She knows that he's witted. She doesn't know that he is Fitz chivalry Farseer, but I feel like Fitz could use a woman in his life, someone that he can actually like and respect and enjoys the company of, even if it's just a friend. It doesn't have to be romantic. You don't read The Realm of the Elderlings for the romance. What romance? I have some other things to read before I can read the next Tawny Man book, but I am really looking forward to it. I fully enjoyed my journey through this book and can't wait for the next one and the third one. If you watched till the end, let me know what your thoughts were, things that stood out to you, and we can commiserate with each other, because that was a little rough towards the end. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys a lot. Link to my Patreon and Instagram will be in the description. Happy reading. Bye.